Chapter 5 Map Clues. James gave me quite a surprise when I stepped out of the tent in my school clothes. He was dressed in chinos and a lightweight sports jacket. "Wow!" I exclaimed. "College leftovers," he said and grinned. "Kind of dated, but they'll do." I must have looked like the quintessential inquiring reporter, because he answered before I could ask my question. "I'm all dressed up because I'm going with you to the county government center." I waited for what was going to follow that shocker. "I want to tell the director of the water management department to plug that canal, Silver City or no Silver City. La Playa's drinking water is in jeopardy." James looked very handsome. He had even combed his hair and shaved. For all you could tell, he was any man going to work, and that made me think about James and the war again. He never talked about Vietnam or what had affected him so deeply he could not work. Whatever it was, I knew it was painful. Sometimes when his face was at rest and he was watching Dajan or a bird, I could see the horror of war in his eyes. War must be even more hurtful than a father taking off his belt and whipping you. We walked in silence to the government center. I was digesting the many surprises of the day. James in business clothes, James going to see the director of the water management department, and no Dajan in the culvert. As we came out on the airport road, we ran into Caruso and Beef Bones. They were sitting on the ground beside a large plastic trash bag. I didn't recognize Caruso from a distance because he wasn't wearing his top hat. Upon coming closer, however, I saw the red feathers stuck in the band of his cap. "Caruso," I said, "what are you doing here?" He looked up and grinned. "I'm working." He glanced at James as if to apologize. "What are you working at?" I asked, seeing that he was sitting at the curbside doing nothing. "Beef Bones and I are waiting for my friend Sweeney. He has a toxic waste disposal plant. He needed some help picking up battery fluid and crankcase oil from garages." He gestured to the big bag. "Today, he hired us to pick up and wash out these empty cans before he recycles them." "What was in them?" James asked. "I don't know exactly," Caruso replied. "It's wonderful you're helping," I said. I was glad to see an adult recycling. In La Playa, it's mostly kids who do the work because one of our school assignments is to collect bottles, glass, and plastic, tin cans, and newspapers. We separate them and put them into the bins at school. Mom says there was a time when she and her folks never thought of recycling. They threw everything in the garbage and it was carted off to the dump and forgotten. Except it wouldn't be forgotten. The dumps became mountains, and the paint, spray cans, battery fluids, crankcase oil, the stuff Caruso was collecting, leaked into the soil. Presently, the streams, rivers, lakes, and bays began to die. Poisoned fish made people sick. Now we recycle, and kids do a lot of it. "Where's Sweeney's plant, Caruso?" I asked. "I visited one last year with my class. I'll bet it's the same one." "It's off Sable Palm Drive near the canal," he answered. "No," I said, "that's not the one." "I didn't know you worked, Caruso," James said, as if he were a little disappointed in Caruso for deserting him. "Well, I must say," the singer offered, by way of an apology, "it hasn't been long. Beef Bones here got me into it. Said I should do something worthwhile. Liza Kay's mom said recycling was worthwhile, so when Sweeney asked me to help, I said I would. I began work this morning, and I'll be done as soon as Sweeney picks us up and we wash out these containers." "That's a good thing to do, Caruso," I said. "Well, why not?" he replied. "As I said to Beef Bones, I'm only on stage for an hour or so each day, so why not help Sweeney and the nation? We're saving our pay to buy chickens for Dajan, so he'll stay in the solution pit once you get him there, James." Caruso glanced at James to see how he was taking this unusual news, but James showed no reaction. "Did you find Dajan?" Caruso finally asked. "Not yet." James was curt, and Caruso knew why. "If you think I'm off my railroad track," he said, "you should check out your own engine. You look like the Duke of Windsor in that outfit, James." "We're off to the county government center," James said. We need a map to find Asian. The county government center? Caruso's eyes narrowed. Now don't you go telling them social workers I'm living in the woods. They'll put me in that shelter with Mr. Burnster. I'm not going near the social workers, Caruso, James said, and even if I ran into one and he knocked me down and banged my head on the cement to find out, I wouldn't tell him where you lived. Never. The noon sun was sparkling on the long, slender needles of the slash pine when we reached the government center. We hesitated, then James pointed to a roster of departments and room numbers on an outdoor plaque. The Water Management Department and the Natural Resources Department were both in Building D. We found it and parted company at the door. After being sent from one person to another, I finally met a woman who knew what I wanted. Her name was Clara Lee Dade, and she was very pleased that I was interested in the county's natural resources. She opened a drawer and took out the map I had seen with my 6th grade class. Carefully, she spread it flat on her desk. The details were even more useful than I remembered. All of the land elevations are here, I said excitedly. Look, here's the prairie, the pines, and Gumbo Limbo hammock. I ran my finger over the familiar landscape and hunched closer to the map. I didn't know there was a hammock there, Miss Dade said, looking more closely. Are you sure there's a hammock on that piece of land? I thought of James's promise to Caruso and told her that I must be mistaken. But she would not be thrown off. She leaned more closely over the map. Could be you're right, she said. The elevations check out. There's high land there. She opened a file and took out a paper and came back. Could be you're right, all right. That whole section in there lies between the highway and the airport road and the condos. It belongs to the old Cypress Railroad Company. The railroad failed long ago and the land has been quite forgotten. I was glad to hear we weren't living on county property where we could be evicted. If a hammock's there, she went on, it's a rare find. There are not many of them left in Collier County. She straightened up and looked at me. Hammocks are tropical Edens. I was very sorry I had mentioned the hammock. Picking up the map, I hurried toward the door. I might come over and take a look at it, she said, and I spun around and faced her. I don't think you like it, I said, making a yucky face. It's a mess. It's a jungle of tourists, carbon dioxide from traffic and condos. Guess so, she said sadly. We cement over or drain everything in this country. You should have seen Collier County when I grew up. Her face softened as she recalled her memories. Do you think it's worth my while to check it out? She persisted. No, I really don't, I said firmly. It will make you sad. Tin cans, blue-green algae, no alligators, dead snapping turtles. Yes, she said, and to my relief turned her attention to her job. She opened a cash drawer. That'll be $5. $5? My heart sank. I had no money and I needed that map right now. Travis was hunting Daisian. Oh, I said, collecting my thoughts. When I was here with my class from Royal Palm School, the man in charge said these maps were free. Are you in Miss Wilson's 6th grade class, the class that is studying the ecology of southern Florida? Yes, ma'am, I said. We're supposed to do some research over the holidays. I wanted this map, but I don't have any money to pay for it. That's all right. She went to a drawer and took out a pad. Your name and address is all I'll need if you're in Miss Wilson's class. I hesitated. Now what should I do? Liza K., I began, pausing before I gave my last name. Do you spell that K-A-Y or C-A-Y? K-A-Y, as in Catherine with a K, I answered. She wrote down K for my last name. Your address. I saw the faces of James, Priscilla, Caruso, and even his friend Beef Bones. I saw Travis rounding the hole looking for Daisian, his finger on the trigger of his gun. It's 1-3-4-5 9th Avenue, I whispered, and I hoped she would never check. I had given her the address of the diner. That's all, she said, smiling. It's yours, free. Thank you so much. I forced myself to walk, not run, out of the room and down the corridor. I passed the office of the director of the water management department, saw James leaning over a stack of papers consulting with a burly person, and went right on and out the front door into the sunshine. I did not wait for James. He had looked as if he was involved in something that would take a long time. I had to get back and find Asian. Travis would not be fooled much longer by lakes on a golf course. I ran home. When I was back in my woods people outfit, blue jeans, ragged t-shirt, and sneakers, I spread the map on our table under the cool oak and with a peanut butter sandwich sat down for lunch and studied it carefully. Good. There were at least 3 places Dajan could be. That slough that seeped into the cypress swamp, a hole the county had dug for road material, borrow pits they are called, and a little nature park by the condos with trails, benches, and grass. In the center was an artificial lake. No underground caves were marked on the map. Before starting out, I climbed the oak to see if Dajan by any chance had come back to Gumbo Limbo Hole. The water was crystal clear. The frogs were swimming, the birds were stalking the fish, and the otter was sleeping at the mouth of his den. The light was behind me, and again I could see the bottom of the hole. No Dajan. Then I glanced at the canal James had checked this morning. It looked more like a vegetable garden than a waterway. Gumbo Limbo Hole was the only clean water in the whole area. But even if it was threatened, that large, evil patch of blue-green algae was still in the pit and growing. I almost cried. The pollutants were reaching our Eden after all. Dajan, come back, we need you, I said right out loud. Come back before our sparkling hole is scum like the rest of La Playa's waterways. Back on the ground, I took the armadillo's trail across the pine land to the cypress swamp. I often went to the edge of this swamp chasing butterflies, but I had never gone in. It was very mucky. Now I must. After a few steps, I found I could walk on the hummocks of tough grass and on the enormous stumps of the felled cypress trees. Before very long, I was quite taken up with this world. I found an empty woodpecker's nest, saw a fish hawk high in a tree, and watched a huge snake grab a cotton rat. An opossum clung to the limb with a baby clinging to her back. They stared at me, and I blew them a kiss. Butterflies hovered over tree flowers. The slough in the swamp was easy to find now that I had seen it on the map. As I came upon it, I saw the dorsal spikes of an alligator jutting out above the water. I splashed toward the animal and stopped. The spikes did not belong to Dajan. They were much too small. Hello, pretty girl. I jumped, lost my balance, and grabbed a vine to right myself. Hello, pretty girl. The masculine voice sounded like Travis's, but not quite. I didn't answer. Are you all right, Mother? Mother, I breathed easier. The person wasn't talking to me. Then I realized that this was far worse. There were people in the swamp. The reward, I thought. The people from the condos knew about the reward and are searching for Dajan. Hello? Hello? The voice seemed to be coming from the far side of a strangler fig. I hid behind a huge cypress and peered out. You look a lot better. Look a lot better? Was someone sick? I decided right then and there to leave. I stole quietly out of the swamp and ran through the pine woods back to Gumbo Limbo hammock, satisfied that Dajan was not in the cypress slough. The water was not deep enough. His back would have projected 6 inches out of the water even if he had been lying on the bottom. Dajan was 2.5 feet thick from his belly to the tips of his rugged scoots on his back. Priscilla had put up her table again and was writing when I came into the Gumbo Limbo grove. Where have you been, Priscilla? I asked. I thought you had left us. I've been sitting by the little lake in the nature center at the condos watching that Travis man. He's been asking everyone if they've seen Dajan. Did he find him? No, he didn't. I was glad to hear that. I would not have to check the condo lake. She smiled. I smiled. He offered anyone a reward Who could find him? Then he went home. Priscilla went on. I watched him drive off toward Silver City about an hour ago. I was right. The person I had heard in the swamp a few minutes ago had not been Travis. That was bad news in one way. With so many eyes and now so many people aware of the reward, someone was bound to find him and perhaps even shoot him. Priscilla had not only put up her card table and palm roof again, but returned her mini bottle bag and sugar packets to the side of her wicker love seat. The woods looked like home once more, and I felt courageous enough to ask her what the bottles and sugar were for. I opened my mouth to speak. It's hard to write about Dejan when he's not around to inspire you, I heard myself. Is it hard to write about Dejan when he's not around to inspire you? I heard myself say instead of what I had in my mind. No, she answered. My poetry has new poignancy. The empty hole, the deserted beach, the lonely call of the dove, and the silent step of the turtle. She bent over her pad and did not look up. Mom brought home shrimp bisque this morning, I said, smacking my lips. Yum. That's very nice, Liza K., she said, but I'm not hungry at all. I know, I replied. I'll just leave it on the stump. You can give it to the raccoons so Mom's feelings won't be hurt. That's a lovely idea, she said, and bit the end of her pencil as she looked off into space like a real poet. Chapter 5. Liza K. lies to Travis and Miss Dade to protect the woods people and their home. Do you think it's sometimes okay to lie? Explain your answer.